Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Pastor Richie Halverson, and for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about casting a vision of evangelism and creating a culture of growth at your church. Mark 16:15, Jesus says to the disciples, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." In Matthew 28:19, Jesus says, "Go therefore, make disciples of all nations." Friends, the call of a Christian is to go. So if we're called to go, why aren't we going? Instead, we've made the people come to us. Notice this powerful quote from Alan Hirsch. He says, "If we fail to go to the people, then for them to encounter the gospel meaningfully, they must come." This is the inbuilt assumption of the attractional church model. It requires that the non-believer do all of the cross-cultural work to find Jesus, not us. Make no mistakes. They have to become the missionaries. Take a minute just to think about your church. Every church has a culture. You have a certain way of doing things. This is when you stand up. This is when you sit down. This is when you kneel. This is when you say amen. Or for some churches, this is when you sit there and don't say anything. This is when you clap. This is when you don't clap. This is how you glare at someone when they do clap. This is what's acceptable. This is what is not acceptable. This is what you can bring to potluck. This is what you can't bring to potluck. Think about it. We've made the non-believer become the missionary. They've got to learn everything. They've got to learn our customs and tradition. They have to learn our language. It's called Adventese. They've got to figure out what veggie meat and Big Franks and haystacks is. They've got to figure out about what we mean when we say Happy Sabbath. They've got to learn the new dress code. Instead of going to the people, we've made the people come to us. Instead of us bending over the backwards for them, we've made them bend over backwards for us. If we want to see the church start growing, friends, then we are going to have to start going. We're going to have to make the move. So 3 things I'm going to touch on to get us going and build a culture of evangelism. 1, we have to contextualize. 2, we've got to create powerful moments. And 3, we've got to give them the gospel. First, let's talk some more about contextualize. Speak in a language people can understand. Ellen White in the Atlantic Canvasser made this statement: God's workers must be many-sided people. They must have a breadth of character. They must not be one-sided, stereotyped in their manner of working, getting into a groove where they are unable to see that their words and their manner of labor must vary to suit the people they are trying to reach. Os Guinness said Jesus never spoke to 2 people the same way, and neither should we. Every single person and culture is unique and deserves an approach that represents that uniqueness. You see, going means understanding the people that we are trying to serve. Every culture has good things about it and negative things about it. Every culture has redeeming qualities. Every culture has idols. Timothy Keller in the book Center Church says, to reach people, we must appreciate and adapt to their culture, the good things, but we must also challenge and confront the negative things, the idols of the culture. Ellen White in the Review and Herald, April 6, 1911, said that when the practices of the people do not come in conflict with the law of God, you may conform to them. If the workers fail to do this, they will not only hinder their own work, but they will place stumbling blocks in the way of those for whom they labor, and they will hinder them from accepting the truth. Going means we've got to become better listeners. We've got to become better learners. We've got to sacrifice what we want for what the world needs. In Matthew 5:13, Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth." Salt does 2 things. It makes things taste better, and it stops decay. That is our calling as Christians. We are to make life taste better and to stop the decay of society. But here's the thing about salt. It's got to go in. If it doesn't go in, it's worthless. Contextualize. Speak in a language. Care for the culture. Learn from it. Go. Second point. Growing churches create powerful moments. Our lives are measured in moments, friends. Think about it. Graduation, falling in love, baptism, marriage, having children, honeymoons, a vacation when you were a kid. Why do we remember certain experiences while forgetting others? Well, in the book Powerful Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, They talk on this phenomenon and share a great illustration. So let's say you take your family to Disney World, and during your visit, we text you every hour and ask you to rate your experience on a scale 1 to 10, 1 being bad, 10 being good. And let's assume we check in with you 6 times. This is how your day shapes up. 9 a.m., cattle herding your kids out of the hotel room. There's excitement in the air, rating 6. 10 a.m., writing It's a Small World together with parents and children, each under the impression that the other must be enjoying this, rating 5. 11 a.m., feeling a dopamine rush after writing Space Mountain and your kids begging you to write it again, rating 10. Noon, eating expensive park food with your kids who might enjoy it a little bit less if they knew that you bought it with their college fund, rating 7. 1 p.m., waiting in line for 45 minutes in 96-degree Central Florida heat, trying to keep your son from licking the handrails. Can you tell I've been to Disney World? Rating 3. And finally, 2 p.m., buying mouse ear hats on the way out of the park. Your kids look so cute, rating number 8. Now, if we average those together, we get 6.5. A decent day. But let's say we text you a couple weeks later and ask you to rate your Disney experience. What do you think it would be? 6.5? No. According to studies, looking back on your day at Disney, your overall rating would be closer to 9. Researchers have found that in recalling an experience, we ignore most of what happened and we focus instead on a few particular moments. You'll remember Space Mountain because that was the peak of the day, and you'll remember the mouse ears because that was the end of your day. Everything else will fade away. As a result, your memory of the day is far more favorable than it actually was. What does this have to do with evangelism? Everything. Often, when I early in ministry came to seminars like this, I would be overwhelmed with all the things that I was not doing. You know, we can hear and become overwhelmed with all the things that we're not, you know. Maybe we're not a great preacher. Our music is not great. Our facility is not great. Our members are not nice, you know. We're not active in our community. They're not open to doing new things. And because we become overwhelmed with what we're not, we leave and we give up. Listen, every church has strengths and weaknesses. Instead of beginning and focusing on what you're not doing, focus and begin with what you are doing. Build on that first, and then over time, address the areas that need improvement, one issue at a time. We may not be able to do everything great, but we can do a few things great. And if we do a few things great, people will forgive us for a few things we don't do so great. Creating a culture of evangelism in the church does not happen overnight, and it does not happen through a particular program, and it is not a quick fix. And too often churches are so busy putting out fires or filling up potholes, they're never building peaks. You got to reverse that. The key to memorable moments is giving people something to remember. Growing churches create powerful moments. Powerful moments make us feel engaged, joyful, surprised. Powerful moment makers are constantly building momentum. You got to rise above the routine. You've got to boost sensory appeal. It's got to sound good, look good, smell good. Eliminate the filler. If there's something in your program that doesn't add to worship, cut it out. Ask your praise teams to practice. Powerful moments are achievable. You see, the reason many people are not even giving church a try is because we put unrealistic expectations on them. People think we expect perfection. No, it's not about perfection. It's about Christ's perfection. But for us, it's about progress, not perfection. You've got to learn to celebrate people's small steps. Powerful moments lead to connection. Groups unite when we struggle together towards a meaningful goal. Friends, create powerful moments. Last point. If we're going to go, we've got to give them the gospel. In John 12:32, when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people into myself. Only when Jesus is lifted up will people start to show up. I believe one of the biggest reasons churches are not seeing the fruitfulness is due to an underemphasis of the gospel. And I'm talking about the real gospel. You see, the gospel is not you're saved by grace plus. The gospel is not just about the next life. No, it's about this life, or rather your future life breaking into your present life. The gospel is not get yourself together and then come to Jesus. It's come to Jesus just as you are, and then he'll get you together. The gospel is not obey and then you'll be saved. It's you've been saved by grace, and now obedience is a response instead of a requirement. It's a relationship instead of rules. The gospel sets people free. You see, only through the real gospel can we really go into the world. The real gospel gives hope. People should leave feeling better than the way they showed up. They should hear that their Savior is greater than their sin. People should find identification. If God changed them, he can change me. But real hope has to be honest. Hope does not ignore the dark realities of the world. It acknowledges them. The real gospel is honest. It's honest about the damage and pain sin can do. It's honest about injustice. It reminds us that everyone is a sinner, that just because someone sins differently than you doesn't make you any better than them. It steps on the feet of the religious and the worldly. The real gospel removes barriers. No one is better than anyone else. Jesus had to die for my sins as much as the person who lives under the bridge sins. I don't care if you have a PhD, a GED, graduated from Penn State or the State Penn. Romans 2:11 says our God shows no partiality. It is time for us to get going for Jesus. Because friends, look at how Jesus got going for us. If Jesus went to the other side of the universe for me, then I can go to the other side of town for him.